Well, hello, and welcome to the PJH Writing Command Center. And I am Paul John Hausleben of God Bless the Cake Publishing LLC. And we're excited that you're here to join us for another God Bless the Cake Publishing podcast. I am the chief cook, bottle washer, chief photographer, flagship author, music critic, music reviewer, and kind of do everything guy for God Bless the Cake Publishing. And I am excited that you're here today to join us as Paulie dives deep into his music collection and picks the 5 hidden gems in my own music collection. Hidden gems being really great records that even I have forgotten about or don't play very often or recently obtained and added to my list and was just blown away by how good they are. And maybe folks don't know too much about these records. And that's why I call them hidden gems. But first things first. Yes, I don't know how these people get in here, but we have to get out our little Orphan Annie decoder pins because it's time for a crummy commercial. And we are proudly sponsored today by Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, Facilities Engineering, the leader in facilities management and technical consulting services. Are you and your facility or property or other assets in need of professional facility and property services? Have contractors let you down? Yeah, they usually do. Been too costly and too confusing and too unreliable? Well, Corporate Facilities Group Incorporated, Facilities Engineering is here to be your one-stop for all your facility and property needs. CFG performs expert facility management, general repairs, property services, property and facility inspections and reporting, corporate security, and operational needs, as well as our expert technical consulting services. So check us out at CFG on the web, www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com, www.corporatefacilitiesgroup1.com. There you go. It's a crummy commercial. I need to put away the little Orphan Annie decoder pin. Yeah, I'm kind of happy about that too. So let's get right to it, folks. And if you've listened, and now that the elephant is out of the room, and I got the podcast done, finished, uploaded, and it's live with the 5 most overrated, which years ago caused a deluge of how shall I say, disagreement on my theories and my opinions and my facts when I published it many years ago on my critic blog. But I have to say, this time around, it was fairly well accepted. I've got a few folks that said I'm a nutcase, and they're probably right. But I have to say it's probably running in favor of my opinion. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, you might want to check it out. So that was the 5 most overrated. So on our hidden gems, we always go 5 to 1, with 1 being a fantastic, unbelievable hidden gem, 5 being a nice selection for a hidden gem, something that I think listeners and music fans will enjoy listening to. And then we have some honorable mentions, which are records that don't quite make that top 5, but I don't want to expand from 5 to 1. It's just more concise, and it's what I've done for all these years. So an honorable mention, and I don't know how I missed this record, because I'm a huge Jethro Tull fan. And this is a solo record by Ian Anderson. Let me see if I can see. It was put out in 1995. It's called Divinity's 12 Dances with God. And it's done with his buddy Andrew Giddings, who's on again, off again, in Tull and out of Tull and doing his own thing. And it's purely instrumental. Ian wrote most of the music along with Andrew, and they play all the instruments. All the arrangements, the orchestra, everything is under Andrew, with Ian playing a variety of flutes and different wood instruments. And I know he plays a lot of different types of flutes. And it's a really interesting record. I use it as a backdrop when I'm writing because I like, I don't like quiet when I'm writing, and I don't like music that I really have to concentrate on. So this is a perfect record, and it's very interesting. A lot of, I would say, East India influences in the music. But my favorite cut is In the Times of India, Bombay Valentine. It's really exceptional. It's an exceptional record, so you might want to check that out. On the honorable mention is Chris Squire, the great, in my opinion, I'll give away my one of my five great bass players. Chris Squire is number one. I don't think you can mention great bass players without the great, late great Chris Squire from Yes. And he put out only two solo records. One is a Christmas record called Chris Squire's Swiss Choir, and Fish Out of Water. And Fish Out of Water is a remarkable recording. A lot of his buddies show up from Yes, and some of his other pals. The amazing Mel Collins, who seems to show up on saxophone for virtually everybody, plays on this record. And outstanding cut on this one is Lucky Seven and Silently Falling. Heavy on the bass, of course, and Chris wrote all the music and he performs the vocals. It comes in a bonus record with two discs. One's a DVD with some really cool video interviews with Chris. So I understand it's very pricey and difficult to find because it's out of print. So you might want to, scour the bottom of the barrels or maybe the thrift shops, and maybe you can find a copy. Highly recommended. The other honorable mention comes from another one of my favorite music artists, and that's Jeff Lynne of ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, the leader, after Roy Wood was the co-leader and he departed. But I love ELO. They're in my top 5 bands, and Jeff Lynne is a musical genius, both in his performing, his songwriting, his musicianship, his production, everything that Jeff does. I just really enjoy it. And this is a solo record called Armchair Theater. And this too is out of print and very difficult to find. And Jeff plays most of the instruments himself. Special guests on it are George Harrison. Del Shannon makes a appearance on background vocals. How interesting is that? Del Shannon is a musical hero of Jeff's. So, and Harrison, Richard Tandy from ELO, and some other folks. My favorite cut on this is called Now You're Gone. Check it out. Difficult record to find. So those are my honorable mentions with Jeff Lynne, Chris Squire, and Ian Anderson, and Andrew Giddings. Then we jump to number 5. And number 5 is a English band called The Sundays. And the record that I am putting at number 5 is called Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. And the Sundays were fairly short-lived. They've technically never broken up. They consist of 4 members of the band, and Harriet Wheeler is the vocalist. And Harriet is one of those real cute little, beautiful English gals, and she wore the style at the time of the 80s with the oversized sweater and the hair with the little hair that came down in front of her face, and she has a beautiful voice, a remarkable voice. And she wrote most of the music with David Garin, who is the guitar player. And they ended up meeting at university and falling in love and actually got married and started a family. And that was kind of the end of the Sundays. But this record, you probably would know Here's Where the Story Ends, which was a monumental hit for them. And on another record, they actually put out a very famous cover, and I think it was featured on a TV show. Can't remember because I'm a big TV guy. But a cover of the Stones, Wild Horses. and that's the Sundays. Great vocalist. It's a jingly, jangly, poppy, indie pop folk sound. That's how I'm going to try to classify it. A lot of jingly, jangly guitars going on. The videos are great because Harriet Wheeler is so beautiful and captivating. She got a great stage presence, and her voice is so just remarkable. So check that out. That's a hidden gem. Number 5, The Sundays with Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic. At number 4 is another female artist, and I stumbled upon this recording because of a music video that a photography friend sent to me. And the music video is about a photo shoot. And it's about a young lady, a beautiful model who's getting photographed by the photographer who's apparently also her boyfriend. At least that's how the video kind of shapes out. And they have this love-hate about the photo session where they get into these disagreements and I guess things that the model always, I know from my own photo shoots, the models can be uncooperative. That's why I prefer shooting trees that don't yell at me. But at number 4 is a Swedish artist, singer-songwriter, Leon. And I wrote down her real name is Lottie and Lundgren. And she has an amazing, remarkable, sultry, sexy voice. Best I can describe it is maybe similar to Adele, but deeper and huskier and a more powerful and more wide range. It's a captivating voice, and the music is really well written and produced. Her first record was simply self-titled Leon. It had a couple hits on it that social media elevated, and then she got more famous and got into more production and actually used a backing band. The first self-titled record was mostly electronic vibe in the background and some, computer production, software production. But I guess backing bands are expensive. You got to pay the musicians. So as she became more successful, she used actual musicians on here. And this one that I'm nominating for number 4 is Leon Apart. And the music video that turned me on to the music was a song. It is cut number 8, 17. And I'm going to call it indie pop or folk again. A little difficult for me to classify. She writes with a gentleman named Martin Sterling. And they wrote all the songs together. Great melodies, wonderful melodies. But once more, her voice is in the forefront. The music video for 17, being a photographer, is a really well done music video. Well acted, too. Very enjoyable. I picked up all 3 of her records, and I have not found a cut yet that's not A1. No fillers. There's just no fillers on any of her records. So her songwriting and her partners on this are doing a great job. Check it out. It's Leon Apart. Top cut is 17. Now we get to number 3. And number 3 is a band that, in my opinion, is more than a hidden gem. I think it's a band that never, ever gets mentioned in the genre of progressive rock. And why, I don't know. I really, truly don't know. It's Renaissance. And I had a hard time picking which record I would put at number 3. I was really torn between Turn of the Cards and Ashes Are Burning. And I picked Ashes Are Burning. What a band. And you hear prog rock, and everybody mentions Yes, of course, and ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Genesis before they became poppy, Genesis, and maybe King Crimson, Jethro Tull, the big 5, big 6. No one mentions Renaissance. And the tragedy of that is these musicians are outstanding, unbelievable unbelievable musicians, especially John Tout on keyboards and Camp. Uh, John Camp, I think it's John Camp on bass. They feature the bass quite prominently, and he's a remarkable bass player. I'm opening up the liner notes here. Yeah, John Camp, John Tout, Terry Sullivan on drums, and Tout is keyboards. He's a great piano player. And they take a lot of classical music and steal bars from it. They do give credit. The credits are in the songwriting. And Annie Haslam is the lead vocalist. So I want to dwell on Annie a little bit here because I was fortunate enough to see Renaissance twice in concert. One at Carnegie Hall, which actually turned into a record live at Carnegie Hall. And while all the musicians kind of blow you away and the songwriting is spectacular, and I'll get to the songwriting, Dunford, I forgot to mention Dunford and Thatcher are the primary songwriters. And Annie Haslam, if you pick up your smartphone now or your keyboard and Google, do an internet search for the top female vocalists in popular music or rock and roll music. And I would bet with little hair I have left on my head, and I don't have much, that Annie Haslam doesn't even show up in the top 50 on most of the searches. You'll get, I'm sure, Debbie Harry, you'll get Amy Winehouse, you'll get Pat Benatar, you'll get Stevie Nicks, you'll get Mariah Carey, you'll get the more modern Ariana Grande and Grace Slick maybe for the old timers. And all these female vocalists will pop up. Ann Wilson of Heart. All these great female vocalists will pop up and they will never mention Annie Haslam. And she blows them all away. Mariah Carey can't hold a candle to Annie Haslam. She has a 5-octave vocal range and flirts, and I can read music and I need to refresh, but she flirts with upper reaches into like G6. She has a vibrato to her voice that is just unmatched. And Renaissance used her really as an instrument on the first record, which is called Prologue. And I was turned on to Prologue by the great radio station, WNEW FM in New York when growing up in northern New Jersey in the Patterson area. And pretty much every male listener of the great WNEW FM 102.7 on the FM dial, which was a free-form, free-play station. The DJs back then could just pick anything. It was a legendary radio station where rock lives. So every male in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, within tuning and listening range of an FM station that listened was in love with Alison Steele, the Nightbird, the night DJ. Just her voice. You talk about Leon with a sexy, sultry voice. Alison Steele was, smooth as silk. And she would come on with all this spacey stuff. And I think she came on like 11 o'clock at night or something. And she would read poetry and she'd have all these inspirational readings. And then she would dive into the music. And she was amongst a monumental collection of legendary DJs there. Richard Neer, Dennis Elsis, William B. Williams, Meg Griffin, Carol Miller, and I think Carol Miller still shows up on satellite radio. Jonathan Schwartz, Pete Fornatale, Dave Herman, the legendary Scott Muni. These are legendary DJs, and they promoted progressive rock. I can remember, I think the Beatles showed up just one day in the studio at WNEW-FM. I think it was on Scott Muni's show. It was amazing. And then Alison Steele would often start, after she'd read her spacey lyrics and her intros, she'd start the show with the song Prologue by Renaissance. And it's purely instrumental and vocal, with Annie doing this la 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 ooh loo loo thing. And heavy keyboards, the bass is featured prominently. It's a longer song, it's prog rock. And the ending note is what floors you. And I remember hearing her live hit that note. And you would think that she could potentially shatter glass. Remarkable vocalist. Annie's still alive. God bless her. Most of Renaissance, the original members, unfortunately, have passed away. And Renaissance came out of the Yardbirds. It was a mutation out of the falling apart of the Yardbirds with Clapton and a few other members, and they lost their lead vocalist, and they reformed with this new Renaissance, mostly Michael Dunford, who's the guitar player, and they reformed, and they were recruiting a new vocalist. So Annie Haslam was a dressmaker, and at a big department store, and she would design dresses, and she had a falling out, and her boyfriend, she took some voice lessons, opera, things like that, and her boyfriend encouraged her to answer this ad in a local little paper that Dunford and his pals had put an ad in looking for a lead vocalist, and she applied, and she auditioned, and I can only imagine their face. They're like, "You're hired." Yeah, I would. Yeah, they must have been blown away that at their good fortune that this and beautiful. She's a beautiful woman too. Comes walking in off the street that can sing like an angel and applies. So Renaissance with Annie Haslam and Dunford. He wrote most of the music, and the lyricist is Betty Thatcher, who was a poet in England, and I think she lived in Cornwall. She was Cornish, and Dunford would compose pieces of the melodies and mail it by a cassette tape, and Betty would then add the lyrics to it. So most of the songs you'll see credited to Dunford Thatcher. So Prologue, Ashes Are Burning, Turn of the Cards, Song of Scheherazade. Those are the primary ones that I really enjoy. The band started to crumble a little bit with releases and some health issues. But Annie still performs. She's performed with Steve Howe, yes, and a number of other folks. She's a breast cancer survivor and really just a dynamic, wonderful woman. And I just wish, that people would pay more attention to the golden voice of Annie Haslam and the amazing music of Renaissance. So there we go. We picked Ashes Are Burning at number 3, Renaissance. Number 2 is another band that I think gets overlooked, and I have my good business partner and friend Lydia to thank for introducing me to the great Keane, another English band. About at the same time that Coldplay was emerging, Keane emerged. I'm going to call this music, pub rock. No, I can't call it pub rock. I'll call it, I don't know. I guess just indie rock. I'm just going to call it indie rock. The unique thing about Keane and the record that I selected is Hopes and Fears. This is a 5-star plus record. And most folks will know Somewhere Only We Know as being the hit single or the hit release or the most recognizable song by Keane. And the unique thing about Keane on these early recordings was that they did not use a guitarist. They were simply percussion, piano, keyboards, and the great vocalist Tom Chaplin, who has another captivating voice and is never mentioned, very much like Annie, in top male vocalists. And I can't understand why, because what a voice. Tom has another voice of an angel. Unfortunately, he ran into some health issues, some addiction issues, which he kicked a few years ago. And Keane came out with a couple more records. They're all great. Hopes and Fears is the epitome. So it's Chaplin on vocals with Tim Rice Oxley on piano and keyboards. And Richard Hughes plays drums. And Hughes often plays like wood instruments too, wood blocks, and he'll tap on things. A unique band. He'll play the sand blocks and some of the hand chimes and unusual hand instruments. Somewhere Only We Know is, of course, the premier cut, but every song, This Is the Last Time, Everybody's Changing, your eyes open. There's a song called Bed Shaped. I have no idea what they're talking about, but it's a mellow, kind of melancholy song that just sticks in your mind. Keen can be a little downcast. They can be a little melancholy. I remember uh, on my endless travels when I used to spend like 300 days a year on the road, I'd get off an airplane and the first thing I'd do is pop in the earbuds and I'd be a little downcast and walking through the airport to make a connect or make a hotel or pick up the rental car, and I would pop in and listen to Keen. I don't know if it helped my mood or made it worse. But Hopes and Fears, the band Keen, check them out. 5 star plus. Once more, there's no fillers on Hopes and Fears. Every song is top notch. And number one on my hidden gem, and I hope this record really gets some attention because it's Mark Knopfler, the great Mark Knopfler, my favorite musician, my favorite songwriter, my favorite artist, favorite guitar player. And it's a solo album that came out the end of last year, 2024, somewhere just before Christmas. And I kept wanting to pick it up, and I didn't, and I finally did. And wow, this is amazing. Of course, Knopfler being the lead man, the guiding force, the singer-songwriter behind Dire Straits. And he has a number of solo records. And I love all his solo records. This one, however, is far and away the best. And no fillers. If you're expecting to put this record on and hear, Dire Straits and Mark rocking out and long guitar solos of unbelievable abilities, that's not going to happen. This is Mark Knopfler playing the music that Mark Knopfler wants to play at 75 years old. I would classify this as pop folk or pub folk. I would expect to hear this in a pub with a guy on a stool and a guy on a keyboard and a guy playing the drums in the corner of the pub. It's got some blues influence, some folk influence, some rock influence. And Mark now, his voice is husky and mellowed, and he almost speaks like Ian Anderson does with Tull, almost talks more than he sings. But his voice is still there, hits all the notes, and he will pick up the guitar, not too much on the Gibson, mostly on the Strat, from what I can tell. And he will have some tasty licks in there. He will have some mini solos that are exceptional, and he hides them in there. No, they're not 20 minutes long. They're not long solos. They might only be 30, 40, 45-second interludes, but the ability is still there. There's a few guitarists that pick up a guitar and play a few notes and you know who they are. Knopfler is one of them. I think a lot of the flat pickers, Chet Atkins, Lindsey Buckingham, JJ, they're very distinctive because they're using their thumb mostly. I think Carlos Santana plays a couple notes and you know who it is. I would say Richie Blackmore plays a couple notes and I know it's Richie Blackmore. Knopfler is very much that way. Just a couple notes, bang, I know it's Mark Knopfler. Exceptional cuts on this would be Janine. Love that song. I put it on repeat about 20 times a day. And Black Tie Jobs. Now, if you can spring for the bonus edition of the CD, and it's a little pricey, and the bonus has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional cuts on it. And I can see why Mark had a hard time selecting and decided to do a bonus on these because these are exceptional tracks. My favorite, the first one, is The Living End. And on that one, it shows Knopfler's ability to write great melodies, great hooks. His lyrics are good. His purpose is exceptional. He still has the mission. He still has the drive. And after all this material, it's remarkable. Not only Dire Straits, but all his solo work. He's written soundtracks for movies. He's collaborated with Chet Atkins and Emmylou Harris and some of his buddies on the Notting Hill Hillbillies, putting out some country type twangy stuff. He's just a ageless, timeless artist. And it's soft, it's mellow, it goes on in the background here, and it just gives me that vibe I need for a weekend. Takes the stress out. And kudos to you, Mr. Knopfler, for entertaining us for all these years. You should be elevated just on your singing, songwriting ability. If you never picked up a guitar, because you're just consistent and remarkable. And congratulations on just a great, great record. So there they are. They're my hidden gems that I found in my music collection as I started to organize things. And I started to go through things. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I haven't listened to this. I haven't listened to this. Except for the Knopfler, which I picked up recently and put it on there and was just blown away. But a lot of these just were hiding in boxes. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gives you a little inspiration to find your own hidden gems, maybe dig around your own dusty boxes and find things you haven't listened to for a while. And I encourage everybody to keep listening to different music all the time, and you'll be discovering your own hidden gems. So thanks again for tuning in. You can write us at godblessthecagpublishing@gmail.com. Give us a thumbs up, yell at me, tell me I'm a lunatic. You won't hurt my feelings. I'm just a guy from Paterson, New Jersey. And you can find us on Facebook. So practice some kindness. Kindness is easy to do to everybody, and kindness is for free. Be tolerant, be kind, be safe. And hey, we'll see you next time. Now I got to get rid of these people and get them out the door. All right, goodbye now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.